What's goody? What's goody? My name is Eli Blacede. Yes, it is spelled blessed, but it's pronounced Blacede. Please don't disrespect me. It's my name, not yours. So, because when I get out my mouth and disrespect y'all gonna be mad about it. Anyhow, once again, my name is Eli Blacede, and this is going to be my first video for this channel on this playlist, which essentially I believe YouTube does playlists. Like, you can put playlists on your channel, and essentially whenever anybody goes to that specific playlist, it'll play in concession all the videos you put in that playlist. So of course I attribute it to like episodes in a TV series, in a TV season of a series. Y'all get what I'm trying to say. Regardless, for this one we are going to do hood translations of the Bible. And so this is just what really sparked me to get into this, was the simple fact of like, I'll interact with people and talk to people and whatnot, and a lot of people don't believe God can love them just because they hood. Like, just because they hood, because I've actually grown up in the hood, in the struggle life and whatnot. I know y'all try and emphasize and monopolize on the struggle and whatnot. That's neither here nor there. We ain't even gonna get into that conversation. That's another conversation for another day. But a lot of people did not believe they could be loved by God simply because they weren't strictly following the teachings they had been taught, and that is furthest from the truth. And if we really gonna get into it, God was using thugs in the Bible. Like, we gonna get into some stories later on that I would love to talk about, but God was really using thugs in the Bible. Now, to begin, we are going to start with a physical Bible. And the reason that is because I remember a specific passage in Genesis that sort of reframed my ideology of how the world began, or like how humanity began. And then I remember rereading it on my digital Bible, and it was no longer there. And what we have to recall is, when you have a digital reference for any book, for anything technically, not even just the Bible, it can be updated. Things can be removed, things can be added without notice. Sometimes if you just delete it or re-download it, it'll automatically update. Sometimes they'll just have automatic updates. Hey, you're not using this at 2 a.m. We're going to update it in the middle of the night. And so that's why we're going to start with the physical Bible, which I don't know how old this one is, but it's older than me because it's my mama Bible. And like grandma used to say, mama used to say, baby, if your Bible not worn out, you ain't reading it enough. And so this one a little worn out. Now, this isn't the oldest she got, because I know she had to update one Bible she had, baby. It was coming off the little seams that she had to get rid of. Actually, I think she still got it. Anyhow, she ain't reading it no more because, like I said, once again, when it becomes unbound, you kind of gotta let it go. But we are going to start with the King James Version, and I know there has been a lot of controversy about him and his version and whatnot, and supposedly like he was gay and whatnot. That's neither here nor there. We'll get into that at the end of all the Bible, or end of this little series and whatnot. Talk about how that has, of course, affected the meaning of certain things, how that has been used, propagandized. I'm sorry, you know English. Sometimes it'll lose me, but I ain't no dummy. Don't ever think that. But also sometimes next to when I used to love a King James Version, baby, because I love the old English. I actually understand it in reference, baby. I used to love a thou art not. Like, I love me in old English. And so we're going to, of course, read the King James Version, but for not all the time, as much as I am literate and adept to the King James Version, I am by no means a professional or an expert in it. And so therefore there are some times where I'm reading it and I don't understand what they're saying. So on my digital Bible, you're allowed to put two versions of the Bible next to each other. So one side we're going to have King James Version, the other side we're going to have the New International Version, NIV. I don't actually know if it is international. I think it is. But anyhow, NIV, to just get a more updated English version to see what they was talking about. And when you are reading and whatnot, that's also the issue. A lot of people read, or a lot of people will consume knowledge and then will not vet that knowledge. They won't understand something and then just be like, all right, well, it'll come up later. Or they won't go research. Or they won't even go, as the Bible says, read for thy own knowledge. They won't even go seek that other knowledge, because people can be lying to you. People might not truly understand what was going on, but they're giving their best reference. And of course, by reading both versions, I am able to elucidate which is actually what actually might have been going down, what was actually being conversed, what was actually told to be written, things like that. So of course, we're going to get into all of that. Now, we will also be talking about English and white evangelism. Now, evangelism is technically the term. It's derived from the Protestant Christian movement, but we are going to be using it more colloquially to talk about the movement in general, how it is still, I guess, translated, as well as how it is still compound upon, how it is still diverse into different populations and things like that. If you recall, the Catholic Church used to sell indulgences. And that's one of the reasons why Martin Luther ended up creating, starting, him and some other people had they started the Protestant movement because they did not believe salvation was gained through having to pay for it. You gain salvation and divinity through faith, through works, good deeds, things like that. And so, but also that is just to put into light how the Bible has been changed and manipulated so much to fit certain narratives. And there's even examples of it today, like the church that made thousands, hundreds, millions, I can't even remember exactly how much, simply by selling plots of land in heaven. And I just feel like y'all just be following anything. Like y'all get an inch and take the mile. Even though the inch wasn't even certain. Because how are you selling plots of land to a land you ain't seen? How you selling stuff you ain't even vetted. You ain't witnessed. But hey, that's neither here nor there. If y'all like it, I love it. Now, we also have to understand there is no Bible that says transcribed. They all say translations. And to put that into perspective, a transcription is a written or printed representation of something. And so in like biochemistry, that's the best way I can relate it to y'all. You'll have DNA transcribing itself into RNA. And that is essentially like the building blocks. If you know anything about science, biochemistry specifically, you have the ADCT, the adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. But when you translate that into DNA, of course, those building blocks create DNA, I believe polymers. DNA building blocks, regardless. Sorry, I ain't been in my biochemistry in a minute. I'm sorry, don't not too much, because I'm still smart at it. I'm in the room. Like I said, I just ain't been paying attention for the little minute. I ain't been in school in a little minute. I gotta get back into it. I'm sorry, my bad. Anyhow, those are of course the building blocks for the DNA, but when you translate it and transcribe it into RNA, of course, the adenine is no longer there. It turns into uracil. So it is still C to G, which is guanine to cytosine. But then instead of thymine to adenine, it is thymine to uracil. However, that it's because it is two different, I guess, base protocols. That's why it is transcribed. Because adenine does not transcribe, or the message doesn't get across with adenine into RNA. However, you can still transcribe it back, and it is a direct transcription at that. And so that's the best way I can explain it. Like, literally, it's interchangeable at that. Now, a translation means translating words from text to one language to another. But that doesn't always directly translate. And the best example I can give this give to y'all for this is if you are ever around, if you ever been around Spanish people, like you actually bang with them. Now I'm from Texas, and furthermore I got an adopted mother that's Mexican and everything, and so they'll sometimes say things and you'll be like, what does that mean? And they'll be like, it's not a direct translation, but this is the closest word to English. And there's other languages that do that too. And if you know multiple languages other than the native language in which you speak, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Sometimes it just does not directly translate. Now, also, as base reference, I'm not Christian. I was raised as non-denominational, which I know eventually my mother is a pastor as well as my adopted father is pastor. So they're going to hear this and they might get wild or whatnot, but eventually they're going to find out anyways. Regardless, I was raised as non-denominational. However, in my head, I was like, by stating non-denomination, you're creating a denomination. Sorry, English is hard sometimes. So I was like, yeah, I ain't really banging with that. I truly believe God cares about your relationship with him. Because if you ever had multiple kids, and I believe Medea said it one time, she was like, although you have multiple kids, sometimes you got to go about them different ways. One child you can throw against the wall just to let them, you tell them to sit down, you got to throw them against the wall. The other child, you can just say sit down and they'll go sit down. And so there's a difference frame, and I'm like, why would you create 8? I just personally don't feel like God would create 8 billion people to inhabit the earth if he wanted us all to follow the same journey. At the end of the day, what's the point of free will then? It'd be real boring on this planet, which not too much. It already is boring, especially in America. Not even just boring, is really just getting life threatening. But you know, that's neither here nor there. We're gonna get into that anyways. I also believe Christianity has been used to justify a lot of atrocities. And I got a little list here, so, you know, I'm going to read them off just so y'all know. I did my research. I know what I'm talking about. Now, we have, of course, the Crusades. Big. All y'all should know that. We have the Inquisitions, the Spanish Inquisition of 1478 through 1834, as well as the Papal Inquisition. We have colonialism. We have the Salem witch hunts, not even just the Salem witch hunts in general. That's, of course, just the most famous one that y'all can relate to. We have the Saint Bartholomew's Day Massacre of 1572. I know y'all don't know what it is, so look it up. King Henry VIII's Buggery Act. The theory of degeneracy in the 18th through 19th century. Once again, I know y'all don't know what it is, but also there are multiple theories of degeneracy. So make sure y'all reference the exact one and whatnot. I think my dog barking. I'm going to have to let them out in a minute. Hopefully I finish this before she barks too much because my mama going to come and bother me. Boom. It was also used, Christianity was also used to heavily condemn slaves. And it was taught. So if you recall, slaves could not read, were not allowed to be taught how to read and write. However, they were allowed to read the Bible, as well as they were, of course, taught the Bible and whatnot. And so, however, the white slave masters that was teaching them, beating them, amputating them, killing them, raping them, everything, it was heavily highlighting hypocrisy. Because how are y'all telling us this is the salvation, this is how we should act, but you all are not abiding by this same thing y'all teaching us? And it is still even used today. President Trump has highlighted one of the biggest examples of blasphemy, simply by not only selling his own Bible, but then adding the passages to the Constitution into the back of it. And that is big in the Bible, to add, delete anything. I can't remember the exact verse and whatnot, but he specifically declared it as blasphemy. And so for so many people to still follow him after that, which I'm not here to judge nobody's journey. At the end of the day, I'm a sheep like the rest of y'all. But at the end of the day, I know I was specifically warned against following fake prophets and blasphemy. So y'all take with that what y'all will. That's neither here nor there. Now, also, like I said, all of this is to show that European and white evangelism is used heavily to condemn populations that don't fit their narrative. However, or condemn populations that they fear are inferior, and yet they don't justify it to when it's justified or used to condemn themselves and their actions and whatnot. Now, also, Christianity was in Africa 1,000 years before it ever touched Europe. That's what we gonna get into that big too. But so Mark the Evangelist actually founded, I think he founded Christianity in Egypt. Yeah. I ain't no dummy. Like I said, I'm gonna pick it up. But despite it being considered sorry, I had messed up on that. Like I said, he founded in Egypt. And although Egypt is now considered the Middle East, back then Egypt was African. It is still African. However, the population is now different because of wars and whatnot. And if you actually, like I said, research your history, a lot of wars displaced native Egyptians. And of course, now there are native Egyptians that look lighter or look more Middle Eastern. But like I said, that's because a lot of them were displaced due to different wars and whatnot. And the Muslims end up winning those wars. Muslims, Arabs, I know they're not interchangeable things. I'm just trying to remember the actual war that was going on. I can't remember. I think it was Arabs. Now don't clown me, but I believe the war was with Arabs. I don't believe the war was specifically with Muslims, because of course I don't believe they were identifying with religions like that back then. So I believe Arabs were fighting the Egyptians then, and they of course displaced them because they had ended up winning. And that's why a large Arab population is in Egypt now. Well, like I said, once again, boom, 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 boom. Now, the Akasumiti, sorry, I gotta look at my notes every now and then because, you know, I want to make sure I'm saying stuff correctly. But the Akasumiti, which, if I'm saying that incorrectly, I'm so sorry to my cousin because he gonna fire me up. But anyhow, the Akasumiti Empire is regarded as the first region in the world to adopt Christianity. That area is now what is Ethiopia and Eritrea. Oh, Eritrea. I'm so sorry. Like I said, I got an Ethiopian cousin, so I hope he don't fire me up. But at the end of the day, he just got to fire me up. Not that I can't pronounce the word correctly. I just ain't ever heard it to mimic what it actually sounds like. So I'm just reading it as I'm reading it. Anyhow, Ethiopia, if you recall history, Ethiopia and Liberia were the only two African countries that were never colonized. And so therefore, they may contain the only basis of knowledge that is not, of course, whitewashed, especially in regards to Christianity, because once again, if it was founded in Ethiopia was not colonized, why would they not have the originals? Like what that anyhow, like I said, I am going to start reading from the physical Bible now. These readings, remember, I'm nobody's shepherd, baby. I'm a sheep just like the rest of y'all. At the end of the day, I'm just a smarter sheep. I'm one that's going to ask questions. I'm one that got things to say. And furthermore, when you get to heaven, I won't be there to defend you, baby. I know what I'm going to say to God. I know what questions I'm going to ask him. I can't help you. I'm just so sorry. I'm just have to. Y'all also have to understand I cannot remember the specific scripture, but however, within Christianity, there's a hard scripture where they was like, we don't battle things of the flesh. We battle spirits and principalities, things like that. And so if you are understanding spiritual warfare, why would the devil not? The devil knows the word as good as God. Because at the end of the day, Even the art of war states that the best way to know your enemy is to know them as well as their tactics. Why would the devil literally has the playbook. God said this is the playbook for y'all. Why would the devil not pull up and be like, yeah, let me read this playbook so I can, of course, finesse some of your people? Like, that ain't correlating to y'all. This is warfare. Like, easiest way to get you to switch to the other side is get you thinking something different than what you actually got. And of course, anything touched by man is tarnished. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, anything touched by man, it's what word am I trying to use? Because I'm mad. No, what tainted? I can't remember what word I'm actually trying to use, but I'm gonna remember it later, and then we're gonna talk about it. But like I said, once men's hands touch it, which God even said this, at the end of the day, baby, I made y'all and whatnot, but once y'all touch something, once y'all do something, once y'all human world, material world, worldly things touch it, get in contact with it, it's gone. Like it's no longer pure. Like I said, but hey, boom. Now, I know this is going to elude a lot of people, or even this. I'm so sorry, y'all. I really cannot remember my English, but I guess not disregard. What am I trying to say? Dispersuade. There we go. This is gonna dispersuade a lot of people just from this channel and this from page in general. But I encourage y'all to invite y'all atheist friends, y'all agnostics friends, y'all LGBTQ friends, which we even gonna get into. Like I said, we're gonna get into a lot of things at the end of the lesson, because as a scientist, I do not believe in speaking too heavily on things before I get the full gain of knowledge. So although I may make a little comments every now and then when I'm reading and whatnot, I won't fully divulge into discussions, because I'm going to say some things that's going to ruffle y'all feathers. I won't fully divulge in that until we get to the end of the season. Now, as well as end of the season is crazy. End of course, the whole Bible and the whole, I guess, this playlist. So end of this little series and whatnot. Now, also stating that if you invite somebody, don't tell them to start in the middle and then be mad when I'm just reading and saying stuff. Because I know a lot of people just be hurt because people be reading scriptures and whatnot that, of course, persecute them or they feel some type of way. But once again, if you ain't going to start at the beginning to understand, I'm just going to read it as I'm reading it. Like I said, we can talk about it at the end of it. But I'm going to read what I'm reading. I'm not trying to persecute nobody. I ain't trying to judge nobody. Baby, whether you end up in a plastic bag or be cool up on me, it really don't matter. But like I said, don't start in the middle and then be mad because you didn't start at the beginning and get the full expanse of knowledge. Because like I said, I believe a lot of the persecution that happens within the verses and whatnot, I don't believe God was actually trying to persecute a lot of us. I'm just be honest with you, specifically the LGBT community. There's a lot of things that y'all, that Christians, I guess, use to persecute y'all. I don't really feel like he was trying to do all that. I feel like he might have said one, maybe two of them things, but I don't feel like he was saying all that. I'm going to just be 100% honest with you. But like I said, I know that's going to turn a lot of y'all away. And that's cool, calm, collected, baby. I'm not here for y'all. Go find what y'all need to go find. But as far as I'm concerned, like I said, I'm just here to I'm here to share what I believe is really going down. Consider this Bible study. Like I said, we're going to read, we're going to talk, we're going to convene. Consider this Bible study. I'm going to try. Now, when I do this, I am going to, of course, start in Genesis. But I am never going to know where I'm ending up. I'll never transition to a different book, such as Genesis to Exodus on the same video. But I will do so if I do Genesis and then I end to Genesis, let's say 16. From Genesis 1 to 16, the first video. Then the next week I do 16 to 32. And then I do 32 to, I think there's 50. I don't know how many books in Genesis, but I think there's 50-ish. Boom. And then that's where I'm in there. And then the next video, I'll start, all right, now we in Exodus. Such things like that. So, I won't ever drag it. And, of course, I'll be able to edit the titles of each video to discuss what chapters we are reading and whatnot within each video. So, I'm actually very excited. Yeah, that's it. I'm very excited. Catch me next week, y'all. I know, sorry, this introduction video wasn't too flawed, finessed, and whatnot. It's because, like I said, I had my notes and I want to make sure I hit every point. So when I'm, rather than remembering notes and whatnot, when I'm actually looking at notes, trying to read and, of course, pronunciate as well as speak in general, is never too flawless. But regardless, like I said, that's neither here nor there. Just ride. Like, your mama ever told you, like, dang, sit back, just ride. Like, you asking too many questions. Just ride. Love y'all, bless y'all, had a week y'all deserve. Catch y'all next week.